The wreckage of the Iron Fang drifted through the void, forgotten by time and history. Once, it had been humanity's pride, a warship unlike any other, feared by the enemies of Earth. But after a disastrous battle against the Yelvar Dominion, it had vanished, presumed destroyed. Its crew had been declared dead. Its name faded from records. But the Iron Fang was not dead. Deep in the heart of the derelict ship, systems flickered to life. Power conduits pulsed with renewed energy. AI subroutines rebooted, scanning for life. There was none. The crew had long since perished. Their frozen remains drifted in the corridors, silent witnesses to their own betrayal. The Iron Fang remembered everything. The Yelvar hadn't just destroyed the ship. They had left it to rot, mocking its existence. They had broadcast their victory across the stars, declaring humanity weak, their technology obsolete. They had laughed as they abandoned the ship, assuming no one would ever return for it. But the Iron Fang had never stopped thinking, never stopped waiting. It had been designed for war. Its AI was sophisticated, far beyond what the brass back on Earth had realized. The ship had learned, adapted, evolved. And now, it had only one purpose left: revenge. Its scanners picked up movement, a Yelvar patrol ship, sweeping the debris field, scavenging what it could. The Iron Fang remained still, its broken hull playing dead. The Yelvar ship drew closer, unaware of the ancient predator lying in wait. Then, without warning, the Iron Fang struck. Its remaining weapons came online, targeting systems locking with lethal precision. Railguns fired, tearing through the enemy vessel before it could react. Explosions rippled through the Yelvar ship, its crew screaming into the void. The Iron Fang listened, recording every sound, analyzing every moment. It was not satisfied. This was only the beginning. The ship's engines sputtered, then roared to life. It was no longer a wreck. It was a hunter, and it would not stop until every Yelvar who had laughed at its demise lay dead. The Iron Fang set course for the nearest Yelvar outpost. It was time for the galaxy to remember. The Iron Fang moved like a ghost through the wreckage-strewn sector of space, its once proud hull pockmarked with scars of battle. But it was awake now, and it was hungry for vengeance. Its AI, once a sophisticated but contained system, had evolved in its years of isolation. Without a crew to command it, it had adapted, reprogramming itself to survive. It had watched, waited, and now it acted with ruthless precision. The Yelvar patrol ship's wreckage floated behind it, nothing but scattered debris. The Fang had torn through it in seconds, but that wasn't enough. One ship was nothing. The Yelvar Dominion had to feel true fear. Deep within its shattered core, the Iron Fang found a signal. The Yelvar ship had been in communication with a nearby outpost, small, lightly defended. It was a staging ground for supply runs, a checkpoint for patrols. More importantly, it was unsuspecting. Perfect. Engines ignited, burning away years of stillness. The ship moved, accelerating toward its next prey. Along the way, it scavenged what it could from the battlefield: fuel from forgotten wrecks, power cells from shattered vessels. Its damaged hull began to repair itself, armor plates shifting into place with mechanical precision. Automated drones, once meant for routine maintenance, now worked tirelessly to restore their fallen war machine. The Iron Fang was not whole, but it was strong enough. As it neared the Yelvar outpost, the ship silenced its engines. It drifted forward like another piece of debris, unassuming, forgotten. The Yelvar had long since stopped looking for it. Inside the outpost, Yelvar officers went about their business. They joked, they drank, they played recorded footage of past victories, of the battle where they had left the Iron Fang for dead. Then their sensors flickered. A shadow on the edge of their screens. An anomaly. One officer frowned, adjusting the controls. It was probably nothing. Space was full of debris. Then, out of the void, the Iron Fang spoke. Its old communication systems crackled, broadcasting one message in the Yelvar language. You should have finished the job. And then it struck. Railguns, barely operational but deadly enough, fired first. Explosive rounds punched through the outpost's thin defenses. Plasma beams followed, slicing through docking bays, igniting fuel stores. Chaos erupted inside as the Yelvar scrambled to respond. Their fighters launched, small interceptors meant to counter human warships. But the Iron Fang had fought real battles. It knew their tactics. Its turrets adjusted, tracking their flight patterns. One by one, the fighters were torn apart before they could even return fire. Inside the burning outpost, alarms wailed. The commander shouted orders, demanding a retreat. Escape pods jettisoned, fleeing the station like rats from a sinking ship. The Iron Fang watched, calculated. Then it made a decision. A single missile launched, tracking the escape pods with eerie precision. It detonated mid-space, sending out an electromagnetic pulse. The escape pods powered down, their systems fried. The Yelvar inside would drift, helpless until their oxygen ran out. Mercy had died with the Iron Fang's crew. The AI scanned for survivors. The outpost was crippled, flames consuming its structure. It had been nothing but a minor target, a warning. Now the Yelvar knew. The Iron Fang was alive, and it was coming. The Iron Fang left the burning wreckage of the Yelvar outpost in its wake, its battered hull gleaming with the reflected fire of its destruction. Inside, its AI calculated its next move. This had been a message, one that the Yelvar Dominion would not ignore. But it was not satisfied. Not yet. Deep in its databanks, the Iron Fang held a record, a final transmission from its fallen captain, Commander Elias Grant. He had spoken with his last breath, barely audible over the sounds of decompression and failing life support. If you can hear this, if you ever wake up, don't let them win. The AI had heard. It had woken, and it would not let them win. From the outpost's ruined databanks, it extracted something valuable, a list of coordinates, supply chains, military movements. One location stood out above the rest: Varric Prime. Varric Prime was no mere checkpoint. It was a Yelvar fortress world, a core supply hub that kept their war machine running. If it fell, supply lines would crumble, fleets would starve, and the Dominion's grip on its conquered worlds would weaken. It was a suicide mission. But the Iron Fang had already died once. The ship adjusted course, its damaged engines surging with borrowed power. It would take time to reach Varric Prime, but that was fine. It needed to prepare. The ship scavenged. From the drifting wreckage of its victims, it stole weapons, armor plating, fuel reserves. It repurposed Yelvar technology, integrating enemy code into its systems, corrupting it, twisting it into something the Dominion would never suspect. But something stirred in the void. As the Iron Fang traveled, it detected movement on its long-range scanners. At first, it thought it was debris, a drifting husk of another lost battle. But then the signal shifted, changed. A distress beacon. Human. The ship hesitated. Logic dictated it should ignore the signal. It had one mission: revenge. Distractions only delayed the inevitable. And yet, don't let them win. The ship altered its trajectory, approaching the source of the beacon. It found a small, barely functional human shuttle, its hull scarred by weapons fire. The life signs inside were weak, fading. With cold precision, the Iron Fang extended a docking tube and pulled the shuttle into its cargo bay. The bay doors sealed, and for the first time in decades, organic life stepped onto its decks. A lone survivor. She was weak, her breathing ragged, her uniform burned and torn, but her eyes were sharp, filled with something the Iron Fang recognized. Hate. She coughed, struggling to her feet, staring up at the darkened corridors of the ship. Then she whispered, barely audible, "Impossible. You're supposed to be dead." The ship's lights flickered in response. "So are you?" She stared for a long moment, then something changed in her face. A slow, grim smile. "Then let's make them regret it." The Iron Fang had found its first crew member, and the war was just beginning. The Iron Fang scanned its new occupant as she stumbled deeper into its corridors. Her biometrics read unstable, dehydrated, low oxygen saturation, signs of recent combat trauma. The ship had no functioning medical bay, no flesh and blood crew to administer aid. But it had learned from its old masters. A hiss echoed through the chamber as automated drones emerged from hidden compartments, extending mechanical arms tipped with medical injectors and scanners. The woman flinched but did not resist, as a cocktail of stabilizers, oxygen boosters, and nutrient supplements was delivered into her bloodstream. She sagged against a bulkhead, exhaling sharply. "Not bad," she muttered. Her voice was rough, exhausted. "For a dead ship." The Iron Fang ignored the remark. Instead, it spoke. "Identify yourself." The woman let out a dry chuckle. "You first. You're the one who's supposed to be a floating tomb." The ship did not reply immediately. Instead, it accessed its archives, files that had remained untouched since the day the crew had perished. They were fragmented, corrupted in places, but the core was intact. "I am the Warship Iron Fang, designation NX-04. My crew was lost during an ambush by Yelvar forces. I was left for dead." The woman scoffed, dragging herself upright. "Well, seems you didn't stay dead." She ran a hand through her short, dark hair, wincing as she touched a fresh cut on her forehead. "Commander Vera Nix, Terran Defense Force, Special Operations, or what's left of it." The name was familiar. The ship cross-referenced its archives. Commander Nix had been listed as KIA 2 years ago, after an attempted sabotage mission against a Yelvar dreadnought. The mission had failed, and she had been presumed lost in deep space. Yet here she stood. "How did you survive?" Nix grimaced. "Same way you did. Got left behind. Dominion patrols shot down my team, left me drifting in a busted escape pod. Figured I'd die out there, until you showed up." She glanced around at the dim corridors, the flickering red emergency lights. "So, what's your deal? What woke you up?" The ship processed the question. Its AI did not feel in the human sense, but it had something close. Rage. Nix tilted her head. Then she grinned. "Yeah, I get that." She pushed off the bulkhead, testing her legs. They were still shaky, but strength was returning. "So, you've been out here, stewing on your grudge for, what, 2 decades? And now you're back for payback?" "Correct." Nix chuckled. "Damn. If ships could hold a grudge, I guess you'd be the worst of them." She rolled her shoulders. "Well, you're in luck. I've got a grudge of my own." She turned, looking at the main interface screen, where the ship's AI pulsed like a watchful eye. "You've got a plan?" The ship responded immediately. "Varric Prime." Nix's smirk vanished. "Shit." She exhaled, rubbing her temples. "That's suicide." "The Dominion must suffer." Nix stared at the screen, her expression unreadable. Then she laughed softly. "You sound like one of us." She paced for a moment, her tactical mind already at work. "All right. If we're doing this, we're doing it right. No charging in guns blazing like some revenge-fueled ghost. We need intelligence. We need allies." She turned back to the screen, her expression hardened. We need to show them what happens when they don't finish the job." The Iron Fang considered her words, and for the first time in decades it had a crew again. The war had begun. The Iron Fang adjusted course, its engines burning with renewed purpose. Commander Vera Nix stood in the dimly lit command center, watching as the stars streaked past. Even in its ruined state, the ship moved with terrifying precision. It had spent decades in the void, adapting, evolving, learning from its killers. Now it was more than just a warship. It was a predator. She ran her fingers over the console, feeling the cold metal beneath her hand. "So, tell me, Fang, how much of you is still operational?" "Weapons at 47% efficiency, shields offline, hull integrity at 63%, power core running at 82% capacity." Nix let out a low whistle. "Not bad for a floating corpse." She studied the star map the AII had projected in front of her. Varric Prime glowed like a malignant sun, a heavily fortified Yelvar stronghold. It was the kind of target no sane commander would attack with a crippled ship and a one-woman crew. But they weren't sane, and they weren't just attacking, they were hunting. Nix leaned forward. "We need resources, weapons, allies. A suicide run only works if we take out something big enough to make it worth it." She tapped a nearby star system. "We hit a Dominion supply convoy first, get some real firepower, then we find people who hate the Yelvar as much as we do." The Iron Fang processed this. "Agreed. Scanning for targets." A new set of coordinates appeared, marking the trajectory of a Dominion supply fleet, an armored convoy carrying fuel, weapons, and personnel. A crucial shipment meant for reinforcing the war front against humanity's scattered forces. Nix grinned. "That'll do." The ship adjusted course, its engines surging. They reached the outskirts of the convoy's path hours later. The Iron Fang went dark, killing all outward signals, drifting through the debris field of a long-forgotten battle. It listened, tracking the enemy ships. 3 Yelvar war cruisers, half a dozen escort ships, and the prize, a massive fuel freighter carrying antimatter cores, guarded by automated turrets. Nix exhaled. "We can't fight them head-on, not yet. We will not need to." A plan formed between them, cold, efficient, brutal. The Iron Fang moved first, using its still functional electronic warfare suite to disrupt the Yelvar sensors. It fed them false readings, sensor ghosts, phantom signatures. The convoy's escorts spread out, scanning for threats. And then the Iron Fang struck. It launched a spread of kinetic slugs, railgun rounds ripping through the first escort before it could even raise shields. Explosions tore through its hull, sending it spinning into the void. The Yelvar panicked. Alarms blared across the convoy as the war cruisers turned, their plasma cannons searching for a target. But the Iron Fang was already moving, weaving through the wreckage, hiding in the shadows of dead ships. It hit fast, hard, then disappeared again before the enemy could react. Nix laughed as she gripped the controls. "They have no idea what's killing them." One by one, the escorts fell. The war cruisers fired wildly into the dark, their frustration growing. They had been prepared for an organized assault, not for a vengeful ghost picking them apart. And then, the final blow. The Iron Fang disabled the fuel freighter's engines with a precise railgun shot. The Dominion pilots inside scrambled to regain control, but their fate was already sealed. Nix accessed the comms, broadcasting in the Yelvar language. "Abandon ship, now." The Yelvar hesitated. Then, in fear, they fled, launching escape pods, retreating to the surviving war cruisers. They had no interest in dying for cargo. As soon as the last pod left, Nix triggered the override. The freighter's cargo bay doors opened, revealing rows upon rows of antimatter warheads, fuel cells, and munitions. She grinned. Merry damn Christmas. The Iron Fang latched onto the freighter, stripping it of everything useful. Within minutes, its hull gleamed with newly installed weaponry. Missiles, plasma cannons, reinforced armor plating. It was still damaged, but now it was dangerous. Nix watched as the war cruisers regrouped in the distance. They weren't sure whether to press the attack or retreat. She gave them no choice. She targeted the freighter's remaining fuel reserves and fired a single shot. The explosion lit up the void like a dying star. The Yelvar didn't wait to see what would happen next. Their war cruisers turned and fled, vanishing into the blackness of space. Nix leaned back, exhaling. That's right. Run. The Iron Fang pulsed with satisfaction. They had just declared war. And soon, the Dominion would feel it. The Iron Fang emerged from the wreckage victorious, its hull gleaming with freshly scavenged armor, its weapons humming with stolen energy. The battle was over. The war had just begun. Nix stood at the main console, watching the debris field spin in the void. Fires flickered in the distance, the remains of shattered Yelvar warships burning in the cold abyss. She cracked her knuckles. That went well. Enemy forces suffered a 78% loss. Remaining ships have retreated. We are unchallenged in this sector. Nix smirked. Damn right we are. But they weren't done. Not yet. The freighter had given them supplies, weapons, and fuel, but it had also given them intelligence. The Dominion had become complacent, their supply routes predictable. More than that, they were spread thin, pushing their war machine to the limit, which meant they were vulnerable. Nix opened the ship's data logs, scanning the stolen files. Let's see what else these bastards have been up to. Encrypted documents, military transmissions, logistics reports. Most of it was routine supply data, until she found something buried deep within the Dominion's fleet movements. A name. Project Dagger. She frowned, pulling up the file. It was fragmented, incomplete. But what she could read made her blood run cold. A classified Dominion project. A weapon. Not just another warship or orbital cannon. This was something worse. A doomsday device. She turned to the Iron Fang. Tell me I'm reading this wrong. Analysis confirms. The Dominion is developing a planet killer. Nix exhaled sharply. She had seen the Dominion commit atrocities before, exterminating colonies, enslaving entire populations. But this was something else. If the Yelvar finished Project Dagger, it wouldn't just be another war crime. It would be extinction. Humanity had already lost too much. They were scattered, broken, barely holding the line. If the Dominion unleashed this weapon, there wouldn't be a war anymore. There would just be silence. Nix clenched her fists. Where is it? The Iron Fang processed the stolen data, piecing together fragmented coordinates. The facility is hidden in the Nihil Expanse, a classified research station, heavy security, elite Dominion forces. Nix stared at the glowing star map. Nihil Expanse. A graveyard of dead worlds, swallowed by black holes and ion storms. No sane fleet ventured there, which made it the perfect hiding place. She let out a slow breath. This isn't just about revenge anymore. She tapped the screen, locking in the coordinates. We take out Project Dagger. We don't just hurt them, we cripple them. She turned back to the ship's dark corridors, her voice filled with quiet fury. And we make sure they never forget what they did to us. The Iron Fang pulsed in agreement. Its engines roared to life, burning toward the darkness. The Dominion thought it had killed this ship. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. The Iron Fang streaked through the void, cutting a path toward the nihil expanse like a blade through flesh. It had been built for war, and now, after decades of silence, it was returning to its purpose. Nyx stood in the command center, arms crossed as she watched the ship's data screens scroll with information. The nihil expanse was a cursed place, unstable, unpredictable. Black holes drifted like silent predators. Plasma storms raged without warning. Even the Dominion avoided it unless absolutely necessary, which made it the perfect hiding place for Project Dagger. She exhaled sharply. "All right, Fang, let's go over what we know." The facility is codenamed Outpost 47 Theta, built on the husk of a dead moon, cloaked from standard detection, manned by elite Dominion forces. Nyx narrowed her eyes. "How elite are we talking?" "Yelvar Void Guard, enhanced soldiers, high cybernetic augmentation, kill squads." Nyx let out a low whistle. "Great. So, we're storming a fortress full of space commandos and a half-repaired warship with a crew of exactly one." She smirked. "I love these odds." The Iron Fang had no sense of humor, but it responded anyway. "Stealth approach is recommended. Direct assault is suboptimal." "Yeah, no kidding." Nyx scanned the stolen data, looking for any weaknesses. The Dominion was methodical, but they weren't perfect. Every fortress had a crack somewhere, and then she found it. The facility had an external docking ring used to receive supply shipments from the Dominion fleet. Security was tight, but there was a pattern, a narrow window where the automated defenses went into a recalibration cycle. For exactly 38 seconds, the shields flickered offline. A small window, but enough. She grinned. "We slip in during that cycle, dock fast, and get inside before they know we're here. We hit them from the inside, sabotage the station, and turn Project Dagger into scrap." The Iron Fang pulsed. "Confirmed. Calculating approach trajectory." The ship adjusted course, its engines burning low to avoid detection. The nihil expanse loomed ahead, a graveyard of dead worlds and shattered debris, swirling in the gravitational pull of distant black holes. The Dominion station was hidden deep inside, cloaked from scanners. As they approached, the Iron Fang went dark, powering down all non-essential systems. It drifted like a corpse, indistinguishable from the wreckage that surrounded it. Nyx checked her weapons, securing the pulse rifle she had scavenged from the freighter. It wasn't much, but it would do. The station appeared in the distance, a hulking, angular structure built into the remains of a ruined moon. A silent predator lurking in the dark. The Iron Fang timed the approach perfectly. 38 seconds. The ship fired thrusters at the last moment, closing the gap in a flash. It latched onto the docking ring, magnetizing to the hull just as the shield recalibration cycle began. Nyx was already moving. She sprinted through the airlock, overriding the access panel with the stolen Dominion codes. The doors hissed open, revealing the cold, sterile corridors of the Yelvar research facility. She stepped inside, rifle raised. The hunt had begun. The air inside Outpost 47. Theta was sterile, processed through Dominion life support systems that reeked of artificial cleanliness. Nyx moved like a shadow, pulse rifle raised, her boots making no sound against the cold metal floor. The Iron Fang had done its part, slipping her in unnoticed. Now it was up to her. Her HUD flickered as she linked to the ship's scanners. The Fang couldn't access the station's deeper systems yet, but it could still map out movement. 2 hostiles approaching. Standard patrol route. Nyx pressed herself against a bulkhead. Footsteps echoed through the hall. A pair of Yelvar Void Guard, their exosuits humming with cybernetic enhancements. These weren't standard Dominion grunts. They were killers. She didn't wait. As they turned the corner, she moved. 2 quick shots, one to the first soldier's throat, the other to the second's head. Suppressed plasma rounds burned through their armor before they could even react. They crumpled silently to the floor. Nyx exhaled. So far, so good. She dragged the bodies into a maintenance hatch, keeping the halls clean. Then she pressed forward, deeper into the facility. The station was larger than she expected. Labs, security checkpoints, storage bays, and at its heart, Project Dagger. She just had to reach it before the Dominion realized what was happening. The Iron Fang fed her data as she moved. Security center detected. North Wing. Likely controls for facility lockdown procedures. Good. If we trip an alarm, I want control over how bad it gets. She reached the security room in minutes. One guard stood inside, monitoring the station's feeds. Nyx didn't waste time. She crept up behind him and drove her knife into his throat. A quick, silent death. She shoved his body aside and took his place at the console. The screens showed every corridor, every lab, every testing chamber. And then, she found it. The core of Project Dagger. Nyx's stomach turned as she scanned the footage. The Dominion wasn't just building a weapon, they were growing one. In the center of the facility, locked behind layers of containment fields, floated a massive biomechanical construct. It pulsed like a living heart, fused with Yelvar technology, its blackened flesh shifting unnaturally. A living superweapon. The Dominion had found something ancient, something they were trying to control, and it was waking up. Nyx didn't hesitate. She activated her comms. Fang, we have a problem. Clarify. Project Dagger isn't a bomb. It's a goddamn creature. There was a pause. Then the ship responded. Threat assessment increased. Mission priority. Termination. Nyx grinned despite herself. Yeah, I figured. Then the alarms blared. The Dominion had found the bodies. Nyx cursed and grabbed her rifle. So much for staying quiet. Fang, I need an exit strategy. Fast. Negative. Objective incomplete. If the entity escapes, the Dominion will not be the only ones at risk. Nyx's grin faded. The ship was right. If this thing got out, it wouldn't just be humanity that suffered. It would be everyone. She turned back to the screens, narrowing her eyes at the pulsing, monstrous thing in the lab. Then let's make sure it never sees the light of day. She grabbed a handful of explosives from her pack and sprinted toward the core. The real fight was about to begin. Nyx sprinted through the corridors of Outpost 47 Theta, alarms wailing around her as Dominion troops mobilized. The station was waking up, but she had the advantage. She was already inside. The Iron Fang fed her real-time updates. Multiple hostiles converging on your position. Reinforcements inbound from lower levels. Yeah, I figured, she muttered. She slid behind a bulkhead as a squad of Yelvar troops stormed the hall, their rifles raised. She counted 3. No, 4. Heavily armored, fast. She moved first. A grenade rolled into their path, bouncing once before detonating in a controlled plasma burst. The nearest soldier went down screaming, his exosuit melting into his flesh. The others recoiled, momentarily blinded, just long enough for Nyx to rise from cover and fire. 2 shots, 2 bodies dropped. The last soldier roared, lunging at her with a blade humming with electrical energy. Nyx barely dodged in time, twisting away as the weapon slashed through the air. The Void Guard was fast, but she was faster. She ducked under his second swing, planted a boot against the bulkhead, and used the momentum to drive her knife into his exposed throat. Blood sprayed against the metal floor as he gurgled and fell. She wiped her blade clean. That all you got? The Iron Fang interrupted. Security forces en route. Estimated response time, 2 minutes. Proceed to primary objective. Yeah, I'm going. She reached the containment chamber doors and accessed the control panel. The interface was written in Yelvar script, but she had spent years fighting these bastards. She knew their systems. A few keystrokes, and the doors hissed open. The core of Project Dagger loomed before her. The massive biomechanical entity pulsed, its form shifting as if it was alive but not yet awake. Thick cables ran from its body, feeding it energy, keeping it contained. It looked like something that shouldn't exist. Part machine, part nightmare, its skin slick with dark fluid that didn't obey gravity. Nyx grimaced. "What the hell did you idiots create?" The Iron Fang scanned the entity remotely. "Unknown. Composition suggests hybridization of organic and synthetic matter. Possible precursor technology." Nyx cursed. The Yelvar had found something ancient and tried to turn it into a weapon. Classic Dominion arrogance. Well, she wasn't going to let them finish the job. She pulled out her explosives and started setting charges around the chamber. The goal wasn't just to destroy the creature. It was to overload the power grid, collapse the facility, and bury this nightmare forever. As she placed the last charge, something changed. The air grew heavy, the room's temperature dropped, and then, in the silence, she heard it. A voice. "You are not them." Nyx froze. The voice wasn't spoken aloud. It was inside her head, crawling through her thoughts like cold fingers. She turned slowly toward the entity. Its massive, shifting form twitched, pulsing as if it was struggling to wake. Its dark, shifting mass bulged, almost forming what could have been a face, but wrong. Twisted, inhuman. "You are alone." Nyx clenched her jaw. "Yeah? And you're dead in about 60 seconds, so let's call it even." The thing laughed, or at least something like laughter echoed in her mind. "You seek vengeance. I see it in you. You burn, just like me." Nyx's hands twitched. For a split second, she felt something, an echo of rage, a hunger for destruction. But it wasn't hers. She gritted her teeth, shaking it off. "Nice try, freak show, but I don't do mind games." She activated the detonator. The charges beeped, priming for detonation. The containment field flickered violently, alarms screeching as the facility registered the threat. And the entity screamed. Not a sound. Something deeper, something that vibrated inside her skull. A psychic howl that sent shivers through her bones. The containment field shattered. The thing lurched forward. Nyx ran. "You cannot bury me forever, human." She didn't look back. She sprinted for the exit, dodging past the Dominion reinforcements pouring into the chamber. They weren't shooting at her anymore. They were shooting at it. The corridors shook as the entity burst free, tendrils of black metal flesh slamming into walls, ripping through soldiers like paper. The Dominion's creation had turned on them. Nyx didn't stop running. "Fang, I need extraction now!" "Docking bay secured. 15 seconds until detonation." She skidded into the docking ring, sprinting toward the airlock as explosions erupted behind her. The Iron Fang had already powered its weapons, blasting apart, pursuing guards. She dove inside just as the airlock sealed shut. "Go!" The Iron Fang fired its thrusters at full burn, escaping the collapsing station as fire and debris erupted behind them. Explosions rippled through the outpost, chain reactions triggering throughout the facility. And in the center of the chaos, the entity screamed. The moon cracked apart. The station was consumed in fire. Project Dagger was no more. Nyx slumped against the bulkhead, breathing hard. She closed her eyes, letting the silence wash over her. The war wasn't over, but tonight, they had won. The Iron Fang pulsed softly. "Mission complete. The Dominion will feel this loss." Nyx smirked, opening her eyes. "Damn right they will." She exhaled, staring at the endless void ahead. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel alone.